Hacksters! Happy Tuesday! As usual, we have a Hackster Cafe with some cool people doing awesome stuff with electronics. Today, our guests are Adam Paul and Tom Wilson of Indifferent Engine. What would you call your band? What do you have a genre or?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I think it's kind of
know.
post-hardcore punk meets kind of noise rock, horrible screaming, abrasive noise is basically it. But
You know,
yeah.
I listened to some of it on Spotify, and normally I'm not like I don't. Oh, sorry. I like the kinds of more melodic metal and like less of the like screechy screech. But I actually really like your stuff, so I feel like it's
Oh, cool. Yeah, thanks.
appealing even to people who don't necessarily. Anyway, whatever.
Sure.
You've
Sure.
made some really cool electronics, and I would love to show people what you've done. So we're here to talk about the Janky Tape Echo largely, but we have uh we can just dive in here, I guess. So what is you have a specific knob on here. Well, okay, so first off, what is a tape echo? But then I'm going to ask you what jank is exactly, because you have a knob
Sure.
specifically for jank.
Yeah, so Tape Echo, it's built from a kind of hacked cassette player. So it uses real tape in the form of 1/8" cassette tape to write signal to the tape and then read it back at some point later. And that allows you to add like an echo effect. And it's one of the older, like more traditional ways of kind of adding an echo effect to an instrument. They're quite rare these days. There are commercial ones available that you can buy, but they tend to be expensive and they're quite hard to maintain. And so this is a way to kind of allow people in a DIY way to kind of like build one reasonably cheap and to keep it maintained, because all the parts are kind of things that either you can print on a 3D printer or something that's quite easy to go and find. And, places like, so for example, the cassette player that we built this out of is all over sort of AliExpress and Amazon and all those places. So, and very, very cheap as well. So it's a very cheap, relatively easy way to get a tape echo that you can kind of maintain yourself. And then the jank is it's already like quite a janky machine, even without the jank control. It basically has like loads of like flutter and all those like things that you get from tape machines where the tape is not running over the heads perfectly consistently. It's just kind of going up and down. But the jank control allows you to exacerbate that. It basically uses an Arduino to control the motor to kind of like get the motor to either oscillate or randomly change its speed and those kinds of things.
Modulation, right?
Yeah, modulation.
Modulation.
Yeah, that's the proper word. I don't know.
So, like you were saying, these are a bit more rare these days, and I've actually seen a number of different for example, for modular synthesizers, there's modules that emulate what a tape echo would sound like, and I'm sure that there's similar things for non-modular setups. But for you personally, why did you decide to what motivated you to build an authentic real one?
I think it was a couple of things. One of the things was that our drummer sent me a video of this guy that I think the video was called like Tape Wizard, and he's this guy who goes by the name Amulets, and he makes music using old cassette players, and like he makes this really amazing like ambient music, and it's really like just really kind of like epic, kind of like atmospheric music. And I was like, oh, that's great. And then I started like looking into these things, and I'd already kind of knew about tape echoes before, and I thought, oh, maybe I could get one of those. And it turns out, the old-fashioned vintage ones are ridiculous amounts of money. But I found other people had built ones out of cassette players before, but they needed a certain kind of cassette player where you need one that was built with 3 heads in it. In order for it to work, and those are ridiculously rare now. They're either very rare or very expensive. So I decided to come up with a way using 3D printing to allow you to use a 1-head machine and then kind of like bolt the extra heads that you need in onto like some 3D printed parts, and it just kind of went from there really. And I just wanted to kind of bring some of that kind of like tape sound into our music essentially. And there's quite a lot of that on our next release. Is kind of a lot of the songs involve sort of ambient stuff that I'm working on that kind of has that, and we brought it into our live show as well. We use like 4 tracks and things like that live to kind of build ambience and things, and just basically just to do something with that sound with our music really. And then it kind of like evolved to the point it has because we also kind of like found people really liked it. So it was like we were getting lots of followers on our social stuff and that, right?
Nice.
So it's a good way to like, we're very like against traditional promotion of our music because it feels kind of gross and icky. And so like, this is a way we can bring people up to our website and they might see, oh, they've got some music, and then they'll listen to it. And we don't really feel like we're kind of like tricking them into listening to our music. It's just, oh, the music, maybe I'll listen to that, you know. But it's, yeah, we're kind of giving them something interesting to look at as well, like the tape echo and that kind of stuff.
Well, it definitely worked on me. I ended up listening to some of your music, so there's everyone, of course, there's links in the description as usual. We've got the Indifferent Engine website. You can sign up for the mailing list, which is also, we'll get to this, but this is also where you would sign up to be notified when the files and everything go on GitHub.
Sure. And it'll all be open source. All the CAD files and PCBs and all that stuff will all be open for people to make their own modifications and things as well. So
yes. And then you also have an Instagram where people can follow you and see all kinds of
stuff. That's where we post the most, is Instagram. So if people are interested in getting updates, that's usually the best place to find us.
And then of course on Spotify. And I have to ask really quick, Tachikoma, is this the creature from Ghost in the Shell, the like walking robot?
Yeah, the robot. Yeah, the walking robots, yeah.
What all kinds of, I see also some Latin here. It's the dog is in something.
Dog is in the garden, so what that means. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And I'm curious where you get your inspirations from.
I don't know. A lot of that stuff is quite, I think when I was working on the songs for that release, a lot of it's quite abstract. So it tends to be like, it starts off as kind of like just word salad and kind of evolves songs from that. And then we kind of like, once we have something, we kind of then between us kind of inject the meaning into it. And so I think that EP, I think we've said before, is kind of, for us, became kind of about like kind of like childhood development and being in school. Like Canis Est in Horto, it's kind of like reminds me a lot of like being at school and like having to learn subjects that I wasn't really particularly interested in, rather than focusing on the things I actually wanted to do. And it's kind of all just about that kind of stuff for us. But I think like the writing style of our newer stuff is kind of evolving to be maybe a little bit less abstract and a little bit more literal. But yeah, we're just kind of writing songs, really, I guess, aren't we? It's like just make it up as we go, and whatever sounds good, we might put out. Whatever sticks.
A time-honored tradition. I'm sure a lot of people know this story about, you know, how was it yesterday was original like scrambled eggs. Oh my baby, how I love your legs. And you know, it's you know, time-honored tradition. So this isn't the first piece of electronic gear that you've created. And it doesn't seem like it'll be the last, because you also have this modular pedal board prototype that we'll take a look at. But so tell us about how you got started in this kind of stuff and how your journey has been.
Yeah, just I mean, I'm an engineer by trade, and so's Tom as well. Tom's a proper engineer. I'm like a prototyping engineer that just like hacks stuff together, basically, and then Tom fixes it.
It's worked quite well.
Yeah.
It's very, very fast in one count.
Yeah. I just like knock stuff out that kind of sort of almost works, and then Tom could kind of like come in and fix all the horrible mistakes that I've made, especially in electronics, because electronics I approach as like a copy and paste job, where I find schematics that have bits of what I want, and then I kind of like glue them together and tweak it until it sort of works, and then Tom points out
also a time-honored approach.
yeah it works well enough for like prototyping. We've got a number of other kind of like pedal things, like that glitcher that you showed a moment ago. That's one I built ages ago that I wasn't quite happy with the quality of it, but Tom reckons that he can kind of come in and do a much better job of that. So we think develop that.
Cool. It seems like a similar kind of concept where you're sort of looping over the same material.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, this one's done. It's kind of supposed to recreate that kind of CD skipping sound, right? Where it just takes a very chunk and just plays it over and over, and you can create like kind of rhythmic things with it. but it can do things like doing things at random as well. So every time you press it, you don't know how long the chunk it's going to take is, and it kind of injects some like improvisational kind of element into your playing, which is something that, especially with
machines improvising,
we like to do a lot. Yeah,
nice.
It's like a recurring theme with a lot of your stuff. That it's all about crazy kind of oscillations and finding a balance between that. It's almost like a collaboration with a machine that's breaking. In as controlled a way as possible.
Yeah, for sure.
We have a question from the audience about are you an electronics engineer? And you kind of just said that Adam, you're more of a prototyping guy, and Tom, you're like an official. Are you both like technically engineers, or what's the deal there?
So my background is actually video games. I develop video games, and well, more recently it's like toys, but like most of my career has been spent making video games. So I'm more on kind of the software side, but I kind of tinker with electronics, and I tinker with computer-aided design and all that kind of stuff. And so I have like an engineering background, but it's not necessarily this. Whereas Tom?
Yeah, so I'm currently a firmware engineer, but I've been designing audio products for about 10 years now. Started out with a company called Stone Deaf, designed a couple of pedals with them, and then I worked with some mixing console manufacturers for a few years. So yes, I suppose you could call me an engineer. Yes.
Cool. Found Stone Deaf. Oh, I'm really interested in the so you've both worked in a professional capacity as engineers, which I assume means working with a team. How is it similar and different working in an informal collaboration like you have now? Or maybe it's very formal. I don't know. Do you have like Tuesday morning stand-ups and you're like, okay, this is what we're doing?
There's a lot of late nights.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
we did a pedal show. What was it? Couple of months ago, and I think we were kind of soldering things till about 3 a.m. the day before.
We had like another one, didn't we, that was in bits. We're like, this is the backup one in case the other one fails. This one is like wires going everywhere and it's all not bolted together properly, and it's like, it was a bit ropey, but we got through it.
You did send over a bunch of photos of various states of repair and disrepair of these guys.
Yeah. This is how they spend most of their time. Like the stuff we post online is like, this is it looking nice as it should do, but about 95% of the time they're in bits, and like different ones are connected to different other ones, and just kind of tweaking things and trying to figure out the best way to kind of like set them up. And also like the thing that I think is kind of tricky for us is trying to make it something that somebody else can understand and build as well. Because like now I'm at the point where we can build one of these and tune it and get something that sounds nice, but having it a process that somebody else can recreate as well is quite a tricky thing that we're still kind of like kind of getting to grips with, I think.
Yeah, so what have you changed? You have the Mark 1 and the Mark 2 photos that you sent me. What have you sort of changed between the different versions there?
Oh, so the Mark 1 is I've got the one that was on Instagram is this thing. It's a fair bit smaller compared to the other one. This has actually been gutted now. I've like ripped all the guts out of it, but that's the one that was demoed on Instagram that kind of got all the attention. But this one is a 3-head version, whereas the new one has 4 heads. And what that means is that you can get a wider range of delay times and a wider range of like tape speeds. So it gives you more sort of flexibility for how long you want your repeats to be and what you want those repeats to sound like. And then Tom has made a huge number of changes to electronics since this version that fix a whole load of my horrible mistakes, especially like filtering and all these kinds of things that really make it just a bit more professional, right? And and so that's all kind of incorporated into the new version.
And not to
it's a little bit bigger as well.
Not to start any, no shade on you, Adam, because you do amazing stuff, but I'm curious, Tom, what kinds of things are you looking at when you're taking something from a prototype and turning it into something that's more easy for people in general to understand, or maybe like a little bit more reliable? What kind of tweaks are you making?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I've only been involved with this project for maybe 3 months, something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it sounded great when I kind of got involved, but a lot of it is about kind of control, range moderation, you know, making sure it doesn't go crazy between 6 o'clock and 6:30 or whatever.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, filtering's really helped just to kind of tidy things up. But the bulk of the design was really done by Adam. He's quite modest, but it really was kind of 90% there when I got involved.
You've made a lot of progress in terms of like reducing noise and just making it more reliable as well. Like it wasn't, I think it worked, and it would sound nice if you set the controls to just the right places. But like if you just gave it to somebody else and they could tweak it however, then there was a lot of settings that would just sound horrible and not in a good way.
It's things like component tolerances as well, and engineering to make sure the tolerance is making fewer filter variations between builds. So that helps.
I had a lot of problems early on with the electronics in terms of like getting the oscillator because in order to write to tape successfully, you need to generate like a big sine wave signal that you can mix your audio into in order to get it right to the tape, because you have to like I think it's called coercivity, which is like the resistance of the magnetic tape to actually having like electrons on the tape realigned or something, and you have to hit it with a big voltage and a big voltage swing in the signal in order to get it to actually accept the signal. And I got that far, but then it had these problems where it would interact with the motor, where I think it was something to do with the power supply not being able to actually supply the current in a stable way. So when the motor suddenly peaked its current draw, it would shut the oscillator down, and you'd get and it would destabilize the oscillator. So then all the sound would just stop until you shut the machine down and boot it back up. So there was loads of problems like that needed sort of looking at as well. And I think we fixed that just with some big capacitors, but essentially, there was a few like things like that were kind of gremlins in there that needed kind of like ironing out, I think.
I love this concept that, you want it to sound, obviously the point of it is to sound sort of janky and glitchy, but then, it's like, but you want it to be on purpose. Like, you don't want it to be accidental, like because you put the knob in the wrong place between 6 and 6:30. You want it to be like, but I chose that specific type of jank, and it's this between like the artistry. It's so interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like a certain kind of horrible is what we want. Not the wrong kind of horrible. But there's a lot of like, it's quite interesting that there's a lot of like tuning you can do with these, even once we've selected down the part values that we think are right, and we've kind of made the guide and that tells people how to build them and how to set everything up. You can kind of like change a lot of values and change the positions of the trimmers inside on the PCB to kind of get it to do some even more horrible stuff. Like one thing I was trying to chase down, we were looking at it yesterday, was I kept getting this really horrible, gritty, almost kind of like really clipped distortion. And it just turned out that I'd had the gain stages set up wrong. So the preamp that's handling the playback was just cranked all the way up, and then everything else was turned down. And so it was just overdriving and just sounded absolutely disgusting. But somebody might like that, right? Like, so they can still kind of like get that sound if they want. But like,
you got these little adjustable pots over here.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them in the new one. I think that shot is of the very first prototype the very first one that was in a proper box, which is probably about maybe a year and a half old, something like that.
It's already got some little style elements on there.
Yeah, I always do that.
Like lyrics on there?
Yeah, they're lyrics. Yeah. I couldn't fit any of that stuff on the new ones because they're crammed so much onto the board now. But there's little bits here and there. But I always think, you got to do stuff that's stylish. I mean,
you've got a lot of. Especially what now?
Because it's a band, we have to do stuff that's stylish and artistic, right? So cram some of that stuff on there.
I realize that you're trying to make it, easy for other people to replicate and share as open source. So you have a lot of through-hole stuff on here. Have you switched to more surface mount, or are you keeping it largely through-hole?
No, I think it makes sense if for the DIY community to kind of keep it through-hole as much as possible. We have run into some problems with that. One is that obviously because we want to open source everything, all the design files have to be done in something that's free. And I just happened to start using Eagle because that was free. And I thought, then other people can grab that and do it. But Eagle has like a upper size limit on how big the boards can be. And so I've maxed out how big the board can be. and then we just constantly trying to cram more stuff onto it. If we could switch to SMD, then that would make our lives a hell of a lot easier.
It might be cool to get some feedback from some of the people watching, whether they'd be comfortable with some SMD. You know.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
If it was just a few, even if you went to some SMD op amps, it saves loads of room and gives more options.
Yeah. I didn't realize Eagle had a size limitation. I assume that's for the free version.
Yeah. If you pay, then they'll get, but then other people would have to pay in order.
Yeah, exactly.
We didn't really want that, so
you could switch to KiCad or something, but that's like a whole recreation and everything. So what do you think, Hackster? You're just chiming in as a tape echo aficionado, and I know that you're also like, this is someone who's regularly watching these shows, and so I know that you're into electronics. What would you, if you're still on there, let us know if you'd be comfortable doing some surface mount components for a device like this, like little op amps and such like.
One of the other problems I had was that we've had trouble with what we suspect are fake op amps as well, where we put some op amps in and then getting some really weird crossover distortion that you found on the scope, and then seems to disappear when you switch the op amps out. So
it took days to find that, because you end up second guessing yourself and go, well, what's wrong with the circuit? It can't be the op amps. And then I just out of kind of desperation swapped them all out and got rid of this nasty distortion.
Well,
SMD tends to have less problems with that, right? Because there's less fakes, I guess.
No, I think you'll still get quite a lot of fakes, but at least we can order a lot of variations in SMDs. Becoming rarer and rarer, I think, to get the through-hole versions.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't realize that was an issue. Now I've got to watch out if I'm trying to build something that I might get fake op amps.
Big problem with old like through-hole transistors as well, like J201s and things like that are really rare. It's really difficult to find ones that you can be sure are genuine, I think.
It's difficult to find anything at the moment. It's insane.
I'm not that deep into different types of transistors. I typically just use your sort of like PN2222 type things. So what is special about these transistors? Is it because they're like higher amperage or they're like some kind of high fidelity for audio, or?
JFETs are useful in input stage because they're really high input impedance. So with a guitar coil, the guitar pickup, you don't have to be concerned too much about the input impedance. You can just drive straight into a JFET.
Nice.
So they are convenient, but as Adam said, they're also hard to find. So.
Yeah. So we have a response here. I'm more of a through-hole kind of guy, but have soldered some SMD parts without releasing magic smoke. So yes, from me. Looks like you got at least one vote of confidence, especially like, for just personally, if I'm doing a kit or something, I'll stick to like 1206 size if it's a resistor or some such, because that's easier to do by hand. But like, I'm sure that you also have, I don't know. You can always do a poll. We'd be happy to share it. Everyone chime in with how you feel about soldering surface mount for kits and stuff.
Yeah.
I know that you're trying.
I was going to say it's already like quite a complex build for other reasons anyway, because there's stuff like if you're building like there's like quite a big community of people that build like their own effects pedals from like kits and things.
Yeah.
But those are like, you've got that element, but then you've also got all the 3D printed stuff, and you've got to make tape loops, and you've got to hack apart an old cassette player and desolder a bunch of stuff and that. So it's I guess like adding surface mount stuff to that probably doesn't take it much further past how complicated it already is. So
you do have this listed among the cons on your website. You have a list of pros and a list of cons. You get to use simple cassette tape. We could go through a couple of these if you like. It's very customizable.
Sure. I wanted to be like quite upfront with people, because we're making it all open source, but we're also planning to kind of like sell PCBs and maybe kits for people to try and build these themselves, especially as a lot of people have kind of contacted us saying that they'd love to build one, but they don't have a 3D printer and probably wouldn't be able to do that. And so we're sort of starting to maybe think about having our own print farm that we can print these and sell them to make a bit of money for the band. So it's just like I want to be quite upfront with people about, well, this is what it is and this is what it isn't, and you shouldn't like expect it to outperform your $2,000 Echoplex that you've got, and it is quite complicated to build as well. So if you've built DIY pedals before, that's really good, but like make sure you've read all the instructions so you understand what's involved in actually putting it together, because it's quite complicated. But hopefully like people will get a kick out of trying to build them and maybe making their own versions as well, right?
Yeah, on the one hand, you may not get the best, performance, as you said, compared to your like $2,000 module, but at the same time, like, you know, if we catch you selling these devices, we'll find you and force you to come to one of our floor shows. Okay, but yeah, people can make their own custom versions of these, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, all the stuff there. We're kind of hoping people will make their own kind of versions. Like, there's loads of interesting stuff you could do with the design. Even taking it away from tape echoes, making little instruments with the loops and things. So it could be like a nice little kind of like a kind of test bed for people to hack around with tape-based stuff, right? So yeah,
very cool. So I know that you brought a live demo, which is my favorite thing.
Let's see if it works. So
So what are you tweaking just there?
That was the time control. I'm just making the repeats longer. I've actually got it on the desk here. I can move the camera.
Yeah. And while you're doing that, I always look this up and then forget it again. There's multiple terms here. We've got reverb, echo, and delay, and I know that they're not all the same thing. Could you explain to me briefly what the difference is?
Tom?
So this is a single delay line. You could make a reverb out of multiple delay lines. Yeah. Echo, I guess, is similar to reverb.
Yeah, I don't know. I always think of echo as being more like delay. It's just another word for a delay. Yeah, I guess. Like, because it's an echo, right? Like if you go in a cave and you shout, it's that delayed repeat you get. Whereas like a reverb is like a smooth tail.
Echo might be a delay with some room.
Yeah, maybe. There's probably like proper like strict definitions of this stuff, but
yeah, there's definitely.
But yeah, there's some really cool stuff you can do with this. So you can kind of like speed the tape up to get like really quite quick delay, and then you can slow it right down and get it a lot slower. And the cool thing is, like, the slower the motor goes, the slower the tape is, the more inconsistent it is. So you get more kind of like warbles. So you can kind of hear the pitch on it, kind of like waving up and down.
Yeah, I can see this being really big with the lo-fi kids.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like a very lo-fi kind of cassette vibe kind of thing. And then we've got another head, so you can get really long delays if you want. Like, so it's like super long echo on it, but
wow, that is super long.
Right up and then do like. So there's a lot of range of different sounds you can do, and we've got like a gain control, so you can kind of push the tape harder to get more saturation, and you can change the brightness and all that kind of stuff, and you can make it completely just the echo signal as well, so you can do like so you only get the wet version. And the cool thing with that is if you've only got the wet signal, then you can set it to just do the one repeat, and then you can use it for like just pushing tracks from your audio workstation through. So you can just basically take any track from your computer, burn it through the tape, and just get that tape sound on it and record it back in. So it's not an echo, it's more of just like a tape processor basically. So that should be quite cool. But yeah, there's lots of cool stuff you can do, and then you can kind of like lift the deck up, because the other thing with these is you kind of have to replace the loops eventually, because the loops obviously wear out, and because as you're kind of writing to the tape, over and over again, the ferrous coating on the tape kind of wears off, and then you have to cut this tape out and you have to replace it. So we kind of been looking at trying to make it as easy as possible for people to kind of open this up and replace the loop. And we'll make a little video showing people how to make tape loops and replace those. But you can also do cool stuff. Like I noticed, like Amulets, he does stuff where I think he calls it like prepared loops, where he'll basically like take the loop and then like dent it up and screw it up into a ball so it gets all kinked and horrible. You get loads of texture where you get all the like clicks and fuzzes where the tape isn't quite making contact with the heads properly, and that can be really interesting way to kind of get different sounds as well. So there's a lot of like different ways you can kind of get different sounds, and you can kind of see on here we've got all these extra trimmers up here as well for doing like there's a filtering control for controlling the treble bass balance, which is something that Tom's been working on. And then there's like a post gain, so you can control how much gain is coming back off of the tape again. And then there's a bias attenuator inside as well, so you can control how hard you're slamming the tape with the bias signal as well, because different kinds of cassette tape like different amounts of bias, I guess. And that's it. And then I've got this one open. I thought you might want to have a quick look at the guts. So, I don't know if you can see that very well on there, but it's just one big main board, and then underneath there is hidden you probably can't see it very well, but underneath here you can probably just make out the buttons of the old cassette player where it's been kind of mounted into the 3D printed plastic underneath, and then there's a control board at the top, which is what all the pots and the filtering's on with this ribbon cable. And and it's all just these 3D printed parts and the tape. This cassette player, I've got one of the original ones here. You kind of take it apart and mount the insides in here, and then kind of wire the old cassette player into this setup, and that's how you get your echo sound.
And you've got an Arduino Nano in there, is that right?
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah, so the Nano is doing two things. It's controlling the motor. So that's using just a real simple like MOSFET setup to just drive the motor with a PWM signal. And so that's how the Jank control works, because the Jank can basically just modulate that PWM signal a bit, so you get different kind of weird wobbly things. So I think the version that's in this is just randomly changing within a threshold, is changing the PWM.
So instead of having regular ticks of a specific width at a certain ratio, you keep the ratio the same, but you change what the length of the ticks are?
So I think that's it. Yeah.
So I'm placement
so it's changing the duty cycle, I think.
Oh, there we go. That's the term.
Yeah, so it's like so like it gets its initial value from the time pot, but then if you turn the Jank control up, it starts to like randomly add a little bit or subtract a little bit from that value. So you get like the motor will start slightly running faster and slightly running slower, almost at random. And then you can do like sine wave oscillation and stuff like that to do different modulations of it. And the other thing it does is it controls a little relay that's down here that handles the switching. Most people who are guitarists, the first thing they notice is there's no stomp switch on this, because most people have a switch like this that you stand on in order to activate it. But because this is made out of plastic, we thought it's probably best not to have that, because people will, if they treat their pedals the way that we do when we play live, we kick the crap out of them. So like they just won't last. So instead, there's like a remote jack, like what amplifiers have. It's this one over here, this with blue cable coming out, and you can just plug any kind of like amp switch that's like a latching amp switch into that, and that's how it turns on and off basically.
Is your system calling all of us nerds right now? Are we all being?
Yeah, this is from my pedal board. It's I put it on there because I use it as a switcher, and it was originally a switcher for my amp, but I use it for this now. But people keep coming up, especially because we've got these on our boards at shows. Like people keep coming up and taking photos of our pedal boards, and like so I put that on there. So later when they go and they look at their photo and they zoom in, it's like just calling them.
It's like if you're reading this, you're too close bumper sticker, but for
yeah.
It's great. How do you feel about people doing that? I'm very curious. When someone's performing with a setup, what are they using in there? It's kind of like a little aquarium kind of thing. You want to like not bother them, but also like get a peek at what they're doing.
No, we're cool with it. It's good. We're always happy if people want to come up and chat with us after shows and take pictures of our gear and stuff. That's all really good. I just thought it'd be funny.
Well, it works. We have more comments here. Cheap can be great, and also that like it sounds lovely. It does sound lovely. Also, I commented earlier before we started this show about how, you know, you've got this demo on YouTube of the module, the unit, and I'll put the link to that in the description as well. But you know, you're doing these beautiful sort of melodic riffs, and when you listen to the band on Spotify, it's a lot more of that crunchy, hard, intense. Oh, I've got to find this. There's like a review of your band that you posted on here.
Scream Blast Repeat, those guys. Yeah, it's like if you scroll down, it would be on the Instagram feed, I'd have thought.
Ah, cool, yeah. And oh no, my computer's glitching out. It's bleeding over. It's all glitch all the time now. Well, I'll fix that.
Yeah, they're good guys. We did an interview with them a little while back, like maybe like a month ago, something like that. And yeah, just talks about like what we're up to, and like we're taking a break from playing live at the minute because our shows are very like very kind of emotional and very like chaotic and crazy. And we came off of a run of quite a long run of shows, and we're just like physically and emotionally just destroyed basically. Just needed to not play shows for a little while. So we talked to them about that, and we're kind of using the time to work on our next album and write some music. And we kind of, it's interesting that you say that, like, oh, we play this melodic stuff showing off the tape echo, but actually like our live shows have a lot of that in. It's just we've never really put out a release that really reflects what we really do. We have that chaotic, like crazy abrasive thrash thing that was not thrash, but like thrashy music. But like we also have like a really important part of what we do is this really ambient kind of like eerie, dark, like kind of thing that happens around the songs. And it's very rare that we ever kind of like go from a song to another song. There's always like a transition element where there's usually some sort of monologue, like sort of like spoken word poetry with like lots of ambient music, and we use like synthesizers and tape machines and lots of guitar effects and stuff to kind of do those bits. I think when people see us live after they've kind of heard our music, they're kind of quite surprised how kind of introspective those bits are, I guess. But
and you said there's more of that kind of thing on your new release?
There should be, yeah. We're still writing it. So like we're just like pumping out songs at the minute and trying to decide like what will go and what won't. But the kind of the high level plan is to kind of record the album almost like as live. So we'll just play the songs and maybe like track several songs in a single session so that you get all the transitions between them all done like we would do them live, to really get that. Because the emotional part of what we do is like a really big part of our sound, and we kind of lose that when we try to like multi-track or like try to like record songs in isolation. So yeah, that's something we're really hoping to do, I think.
Speaking of the future, if you built one of these again, like if you made a Mark III, what do you think you would update about it?
I think there's still some like low-hanging fruit in terms of like improving the way the motor responds, because it's very like the motor does it, because I don't know anything about motors really. This is the first time I've ever built anything that has a motor in it, but it's very like it's very
DC motors, stepper motors.
No, it's just the DC brushed motor that's in the original cassette player. But it turns out that they don't respond very linearly to the PWM signal, right? I guess because they have like momentum, because it's got with mass, and so you tend to find that like with the Jank control, it's very responsive with a slow motor, because the motor can kind of make a big change between its current speed and the next speed quickly. But when it's already running very fast, then it's quite difficult to get it to just slow down for a short moment and then speed up again. I think they need a proper like. I think I read a little bit about like needing like a braking mode controller or something that can actively slow the motor down when you want it to be slower, and like use the current that's being generated by the motor to brake itself or something. But I don't really I don't really understand it, to be honest. I'm hoping Matey here can kind of like read into it more and help me, because I'm just going by like what I'm reading online and trying to desperately understand it. But yeah, I think yeah, but then there's loads of cool stuff you could do. You could do stereo ones where you have a different tape machine for each side. So you do like one on the left, one on the right, and because the speeds won't match perfectly, you'll get like a chorusing effect, right, where it kind of like makes it like stereo-wise, where it makes it feel like it's really wide and cool. And then you could make that effect bigger by moving the tape speeds apart from each other and things like that. So you could build like a double size one in like a rat case or something that does that. And then I thought about building like a Moog type thing where you've got like pre-recorded loops on them, and then having a whole bank of them, and you like turn them on and off to play different notes and stuff. I've seen people do really cool stuff like that before, and it seems like a good kind of platform for just like hacking stuff like that into it, basically. I don't know. Have you got any ideas what we could do? There must be some more stuff I'm not thinking of.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends which road you want to go down, isn't it? I'd quite like to. And you like keeping the Arduino because it's very easily accessible, but it's also quite expensive. And I wondered if we could produce our own little module, because it's doing what, PWM and
it doesn't. There's hardly any of it's used.
So maybe we could offer a really basic little module that's a $5 or something like
that. That would be a lot cheaper. Yeah, because it's basically just I'm just using like off the shelf stuff so that it's easy for other people to find. But it's not done in a very efficient way. There's probably loads of stuff we could do to like both from like a technical point of view just to make it more efficient and make it cheaper. But I'm always like angling for like the creative stuff where like I come up with some stupid idea to do some some weird thing with the effect, and I think you're like more, we need to make it cheaper now. We need to make it, make it work properly, Adam, before you start like
That's always the challenge. You also mentioned that you want to make sure that stuff is accessible. You mentioned on here that people have to do some light CAD work, but they can use Tinkercad. It's a great tool. I've been using like more intense or professional CAD for ages, but also Tinkercad's really useful for like little mods and stuff. You just want to make it bigger. Like Onshape, the one that I use, it's actually really hard to just make something bigger and not throw everything out of whack, like with dimensioning. But Tinkercad, you can just like, whoop, it's bigger. And so I'm wondering what your favorite tools are for CAD. Like when you're designing this, what are you using for 3D CAD? You're using Eagle for the PCBs. And what about the 3D printer?
And I do not recommend Eagle. We've had a lot of trouble with Eagle. It's horrible, but like we're still on with it. But but CAD wise, I don't really know. Like I don't really have a background in CAD. I just started doing CAD because I like making things, and I'm very bad at like doing things that involve traditional skills like woodworking or making anything. I can only do like 3D printed stuff because I'm basically getting a robot to do the work for me, right? So I can understand kind of going into the computer and drawing boxes and things and then getting that to print out. But I'm using Fusion 360 just again because it was like at least the free version of it is free, and there's enough features in there on the free version that you can do some quite complicated things, or what from my perspective are quite complicated things.
And it integrates with Eagle, right? Have you used that at all?
I haven't. I know it should do, but it's one of those things where like Eagle is already such a janky, horrible thing. I don't want to add any.
Isn't that right up your alley? Oh yeah, I love this. It's janky and horrible.
Yeah, if it made music, if I could somehow make some sort of sound, that would be cool. But like, no, it's not very nice.
Eagle developers.
Yeah.
Market research.
Yeah. But Fusion's been good. I mean, it was easy enough that I could understand it and make this thing with it. So, and I've got some other projects in it as well that I'm working on that there's been a slight learning curve, but it was straightforward enough that I could get what I needed done and get things printing. So I'm pretty happy with Fusion for the minute until somebody teaches me something better.
You talked about maybe setting up a 3D printing farm, or if you decided to make more of these, you might need to upgrade your setup. Currently, what do you think would be the next thing that you could do, that you would like to do if you had like unlimited budget to upgrade your workshop?
Oh right, so when we started putting, I call it the farm, but it's we've got 3 printers and 2 of them are on in the farm. So I've got like a Prusa Mini that's printing the black bits of the enclosure, and then I've got a modified Ender 3 that's doing all the internal stuff. But I think the next thing would just be adding loads of printers. I think I'm quite happy with that little Mini. It's very cheap. and it's very reliable and the quality is very good. So I would just buy loads of those and start printing loads of stuff because it's quite fun. I quite like the idea of like being a like 21st century farmer, of like going like almost like I'm tending my fields, but it's just loads of printers, you know, like it's really, there's something really like kind of cyberpunk that appeals to me about that. But yeah, so I'd probably just buy a whole load of 3D printers. I probably need a new drill press because my one got nicked not long ago, and so I need a new one.
That's honestly impressive. I mean, it sucks, and I'm sorry, but like, you can't.
Yeah,
just,
it's quite a big drill press as well there that they walked off with. It's like I think it took 2 people to lift it into the shop. So I mean, it's a big old machine it was. But
condolences.
Yeah, sorry.
I said condolences.
Yes, yeah, it's all right. I've got a little one my dad gave me actually. It's like, oh, I've got a spare little bench one you can have. Put it on the bench, fired it up, and the whole like chunk and everything just fell out. I've never figured out how to put it back in. It's just like some part must have failed, and it just because he had it sat in his garage for so long or something. I think so I need to sort that. But yeah, I don't know. I'd probably buy maybe like laser cutters and things like that. I'm very into anything that's kind of like CNC and lasering and things like that. Like, I don't know anything about it, but I've always wanted to get into that stuff because it's kind of like the 3D printing. It's something I can do in software that I understand, but I can also kind of and then have robots kind of like do the actual hands-on stuff for me, and I just have to know enough to keep the robots happy.
Pick and place.
Yeah, pick and place there. That would be interesting.
Oh yeah.
Quite complicated, but yeah, we could. Like building like a proper little workshop where we could start building pedals for ourselves and putting them out as well, and doing it kind of cheap enough that because I want to sell like pedals to people, and it's a cool way to kind of brand that with the band and kind of create that ecosystem where we're kind of bringing people into our music with the cool stuff we're making. But at the same time, I don't want to like charge people an absolute fortune for things. I kind of like making really cool stuff, but have it cheap enough that it's accessible. And so keeping kind of costs down would be a big part of it for me. And so whatever gear we could get that would make it efficient, quick, and not a hugely labor intensive thing, because it's the labor that makes it expensive, right? So if we can keep the labor down by using clever things like pick and place and stuff, then then that's what we want for our shop, I guess.
Totally. Also, you know, when you're able to buy things in bulk and then ship them out to people for kits, you know, compared to everyone having to buy their own stuff, totally makes sense. You've also been working on this modular pedal board, and I love this animation that you sent me. Is this from Fusion 360?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it took a bit of effort to make it do that. I haven't quite got my head around the renderer for it yet.
It looks great. I thought this was a real thing. I was like, wow, that's really nice photo quality.
Cool. Yeah, it has a rendering mode where you can do like, it's a bit tricky to set it up. It's probably would be easier really to export to like Blender and do the animations in there or something, but I'm not clever enough to do that, so I just forged ahead with what Fusion gives you. But it can do some nice renders. It's just a little tricky to get it set up. But this isn't an original idea at all, really. I've seen other people building modular pedal boards out of 3D printed parts, but I thought it'd be cool to have one place where we had our one where we could keep adding bits to it, and then other people could add bits to it, and we could just have like a big community of people like making different bits to bolt into their pedal boards. Because I'm sure people will come up with things that they, you know, especially when it comes to like mounting different power supplies for your boards and things like that. They're all different sizes, and having some way that maybe someone will make like a parametric one that you can just like put in the dimensions of your power supply, and it will, you know, a little script that will just make you the mountings that go on those rails would be really cool. But it's all open source and it's free. And maybe at some point, if we manage to get our print farm going and making enough of these tape echoes, we might like put together some simple kits so people can order the parts and the extrusions, and then you can kind of bolt together your own pedal board of whatever size and spec that you want. Would be kind of a neat thing, I think.
Super cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Any other gadgets that you have in the works? So you were working on this glitch pedal before, and you ended up making a Janky Tape Echo and modular pedal board.
There's some other bits and pieces. There's another pedal that I'm not going to talk about just yet. It's more crazy than the Tape Echo, but I'm not sure if it's going to work. I haven't finished prototyping yet. The idea seems like it should work, but I haven't got any evidence that it actually will. And so I'm going to like build something that actually works first, and then I might post it on our Instagram or something. But it's a lot more unusual than the Tape Echo, so it might be interesting. And then I'm doing like some prop work for the band where we're building like some like replica IBM like tape machine cabinets, you know, like the old data center, like IBM 360 things, like the 2400 series type things. So I've got as far as I've got that kind of CAD'd up, and then I've kind of got like the real hubs and stuff printed, and I've done some very, very basic electronics to kind of control the steppers for it and stuff. And we're gonna knock together these big tape cabinets that we can kind of take out live with us and put on the stage to look intimidating. And
I do love your current setup. You've already got a reel-to-reel up there, and you got some
yeah, we have a lot of TVs. That's not even all the TVs. Like I think I did a count up because there was some off that was from a photo shoot we did the other week, and there was a bunch of them that were off to the side where we just couldn't find anywhere to put them. But I think we've got 30 in total now or something crazy, because I've got a whole bunch more out in the workshop as well. So it's I don't think we take them to shows, right? We load up the cars with them and we take them out and we put them all over the stage. But like we've got to the point where we just can't take any more out to shows now because we just can't fit any more in the cars. So but yeah, we want to add these cabinets and stuff, and and I don't know how we're going to move them. Like I haven't thought as far ahead as the logistics yet. Like we just do it and then and then figure it out.
Legit. It's another time tested approach.
Yeah, you do things. Don't worry about all the details. You just get started, right? You start and then there's no, because otherwise, like I find the biggest problem is if you overthink things, you kill ideas before they even get started, right? You just start, see how far you can get, and solve the problems one at a time, right? And I usually find that works best for me.
Cool. And you're kind of in the process with that with your new your next upcoming release, I guess. It sounds like you're in sort of prototyping stages.
Yeah. Do you mean the music in particular?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We're getting in the room a lot, just doing a lot of writing and working on demos. If people sign up to our email thing, actually, they get a link in the sign up page where you can go and listen to a few of our demos. Like I'm just posting demos on our SoundCloud under a secret thing, so people can kind of go and listen to it and get an idea of where we're going. And they're all pretty ropey demos, but like it's just a nice extra little thing for people to be able to go and listen to some of the bits and pieces we're working on and get an idea of what direction.
I'm interested. There's a link to that immediately on the Indifferent Engine webpage, which we linked. I think it's the first link down below, but also that's also on the page for the Janky Tape Echo. It's also the way that you get notified when there's open source stuff available for that, all the different files and stuff. And you can also just follow on GitHub, I imagine, because
already got this. When it'll be everything will be on GitHub. We'll probably like somehow have a packaged release, whether that's via a link on GitHub or we'll have it bundled somewhere for people that are less happy with browsing GitHub and using Git to clone things and stuff like that. But everything will be on GitHub, and it's an easy place that people understand that you can get stuff from, right? So
excellent. So that's where people can follow. Just before we wrap up here, we're coming to the end of our hour, but what else are you excited about in the world of music and technology? There's so much going on, and is there anything that you've seen recently that you went like, "Oh, shiny," and like got really excited about?
I'm trying to think. Actually, have you seen anything that
I really like the neural DSP stuff. A friend that works for them, and they're just an incredible company, making some like really progressive sounding stuff. One of the complaints I would have about typically kind of modeling platforms is that they're always trying to copy something else, whereas the stuff that neural DSP are doing is really kind of forward thinking. So yeah, I'd probably check that out.
Cool.
I feel like one of our recent guests also talked about this. I've got to clearly check it out now. This is like the second person who's gotten very excited about these. Okay, cool. So you can go check those out if you want to see what the music nerds are excited about. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. There are a few links for you that you can check out. The Indifferent Engine website. Go follow them on Instagram. There's a Spotify page that has all the previous music on it, but also you can sign up for the mailing list to hear bits from the new one, stuff that's going to be coming out.
Demos, horribly recorded demos.
Horribly recorded. I'm honestly this one that you put up before. I think this is really dreamy and beautiful. I would just listen to this on the background. You know, if it's this quality.
People keep commenting that it sounds like what was it? Like some song by Alexis on Fire, because I think it uses the same chords at the intro or something. But yeah, and then some people said it sounds a bit like Deftones as well. So it's like, but yeah, it's like quite like dream pop kind of sounding, I guess, isn't it? Like, yeah, quite nice.
Very nice. So that's their YouTube. You can go follow, and of course, go follow on GitHub if you want to see when the new stuff gets posted. But really, sign up for the mailing list, because that way you'll get notified about all this good stuff. All right, thank you guys so much. This has been such a pleasure.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, same. Yeah, thanks.
Cheers. Have a great evening, and thank you everyone for joining us. Hack on.